Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to see all of you in the room and also to our colleagues that are joining online in the live stream. Very happy to see you this morning. Happy and welcome to this event in the context of the European Health Tech Week. My name is Elizabeth Kuiper. I'm Associate Director at the European Policy Center, a Brussels-based think tank, and I will be moderating today's event that will be focusing on showcases of digital technologies in the health sector. With the question, how can technology help detect or tackle a disease? So we're delighted to have so many excellent speakers with us today. We have two panels where we're going to hear a lot about how technologies work for specific diseases and disease areas. But also we will be highlighting in the second panel also some showcases and how that works more specifically also for different parts of the healthcare sector. But of course, none of this would have happen without the help and support of the MEPs that are in charge of all of this. And I'm sure that you don't need to be introduced, MEP Maria Carvalho, because you have been a very influential MEP already for a long time. I think you also have been working as an advisor for the European Commission already during the Barroso Commission and also for Commissioner Moedas. So you have a long-standing tradition when it comes to working in the field of science, higher education, innovation and research policy. So we're delighted to have you this morning with us. And I'm very keen to pass the floor to you to provide opening remarks for this event today.
So good morning. I would like to welcome you all to the European Parliament. I'm very pleased that we are back to this tradition of having physical meetings, and we are all together here inside the Parliament. It was a difficult period for everyone, but also for our work that is so based on the contacts with stakeholders and meetings and network. Was very a difficult time. So very glad to be here, and also very glad about the subject that we are discussing, that is at the core of the work that I usually do, involving research, innovation, the digital data, and applied to such an important application that I consider probably in my work the application that I care more, that is health, because we care for people, and this health is very important for all of us and for everyone. I want to start thanking my colleague Stέλio Κυμπουρόπουλο. He is the organizer of a series of events, and after each session he has invited one colleague to co-host with him, and I was the one chosen for this session, and I'm very pleased. But really, he is the one that has organized all these series of events, and I want to thank him for that. I also want to thank all the speakers, I'll wait for the organization and putting all this together. Thank you that you are doing fantastic work, not only in this event, but in many other areas, not only for the technology, but also for the society. For example, in your work of attracting more girls and women for digital, that is something that I also care a lot, and it's is a service that you are doing to the European society, helping us to attract more women to these areas of digital. A special word to the European Commission that were invited quite short notice, but former colleagues always help, and they immediately said yes, they will be present, and it's very important that we listen from the research, DG Research and Innovation, what are the plans and the vision on this. I'm really convinced on the subject, I'm really convinced that there is a whole hope and new avenues for health due to the recent developments in technology in many areas, but mainly in digital. in the digital area. Things like the data, big data, artificial intelligence have not been yet sufficiently applied for the sake of understanding diseases and preventing diseases and find solutions for diseases. So there is, we are at the point where that we have invested in the last, I would say, 20 years in these areas of research and innovation, that we are now getting the knowledge that is ready to be more and more applied to this, to the health sector. Also, imaging is something that is very useful for so all the imaging technologies, and combine all these technologies with the advancements in bio, we will have a fast development, I'm sure. If we continue to do it right, we will have a fast development in health. And what is to do it right? I think first we need to continue to invest in research and innovation, both from the public sector, national, regional, and European-wise. So we will push for a big investment in the next multi-annual financial framework, because it's time that we start thinking about the next one and in the next successor of Horizon Europe. So we should invest, continue to have big and increase the investment in research and innovation, but also from the private sector to create the conditions that the private sector invests. We create the conditions for the collaboration. We need to collaborate in all the fields, but mainly in health. When we had recently the COVID showed us the importance of international collaboration. So we need to collaborate inside Europe, but also with outside Europe, with our partners, our friends outside, our neighbors. And we need to have a global, especially in more fundamental research, a global cooperation. So research and innovation and collaboration in research and innovation. The second point that we need to do it right is data. We are working in a lot of dossiers on data. I'm also involved in the Data Act. We need, when I say we need to do it right, we need to do it simple, and we need to make sure that we don't create difficulties for the use of data for research purpose, mainly for, and also for health purpose, and for things like rare diseases, for children diseases. We should not have unnecessary complications that will hamper the use of data for the development of new medicines and the solutions for health. So we really need to look always to these data files, taking in consideration that there are sectors where we need to have a slightly different approach to make sure that data can be used easily in order, and also that we can transfer data to make sure that we can collaborate and have the critical mass that with the research and the data, we develop solutions much faster. So with research and innovation, new technologies, use of the new technologies, and the right use of data, of course, everything based on our principles, and you know that this is fundamental, is not worth to develop a lot. We always, in our data and in our research, we are based on ethicals, very strong ethical principles, very strong integrity, research integrity principles, but that is the basis, and with that basis, we can collaborate and make sure that we have important solutions and that they these solutions arrive in short time to the ones that are in need, that are the patients and the people that need these solutions. So this is my message in the beginning of this event. I look forward to listen to some of you, and I really expect that all the researchers work hard, because we all be at one day in need of the results of your research. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks a lot to you, MEP Maria Carvalho, really for your warm words of welcome, but also for stressing that indeed we're only starting to realize the potential of technologies and the importance of health of data for the healthcare sector. And indeed, the speakers today will also elaborate on why that's so important. And as you said, it's very important also to have the European Commission on board, because there's so many initiatives also in the context of the research and innovation going on in the health sector. So I'm very happy to, without further ado, giving the floor to Carmen Laplaza Santos. She's head of unit Health Innovations and Ecosystems in DG Research and Innovation of the European Commission. So, Carmen, we're very happy to have you. MEP Kimpouropoulos, in case you're wondering, will join us later. He's indeed... Sorry, how could I have overlooked you? Well, that brings me then perhaps to the question, do you also want to continue with words of welcome? Because I have been given the signal that you would join us later, but very happy to follow up.
No, thank you very much. I'm sorry for my short delay, and I'm very happy for this event on this 3 days summit. We co-host with my dear colleague, Ms. Carvalho, and the only thing that I would like to say that I'm very glad that you are all here, that we will follow this wonderful discussion. And on this event, the European Health Tech Summit is organized to bring the spotlight in the role of technology in the health sector, and I believe that today's event is the epitome of the summit. So thank you once again, and I will deliver my speech at the end of today's panel.
Well, thank you very much, MEP Kimpouropoulos. We're delighted to have you with us, and also thank you very much for your leadership in organizing this Health Tech Week. I think it's very important that we think about this topic. And I think, as already a few of our speakers alluded to me in advance when we were preparing the event, I think it's quite a niche area where, of course, in the health sector, there has been a lot of debate. Also, I think following the pandemic, there is a lot of debate on data, but not necessarily on the use of data and the importance of data in the health sector. So in that respect, I really would like to thank you for your leadership and for putting together such a wonderful speakers, all the institutions. So many, many thanks to you, and also to the two of you for being the host of today's event. So having said that, I really would like to go to Carmen from the European Commission, because we're very looking forward to you setting the scene when it comes to the field of innovation and research.
Thanks a lot. I'm really glad to be here. So thanks a lot for the organization of this event and for the MEPs that have hosted. I'm really looking forward to see everything that you will present. That's for me the very exciting part. Indeed, the use of digital technologies in the healthcare sector is really very important. And I could simplify that to two main reasons. One is to modernize the healthcare provision in Europe. Our healthcare systems are, or soon will be, all of them unsustainable. So digital technologies can help in order to support their becoming more efficient. And on the other side, it is essential also to modernize science. I think that Ms. Carvalho already mentioned many of the opportunities that we absolutely need to take most advantages. But also, I think that we could point at different examples on how there are many limitations in science if we are not supported by data analytics. And one very concrete example would be in the development of alternative to animal testing, which is, for example, a subject very much now in the pipeline. European Citizens Initiative was welcomed by the Commission last week. And this is one of the fields where we absolutely need science to go further because of the limitations of the animal methods. And without digital technologies, it is not possible. We absolutely need the further development of in silico methods, for example, computerized models. This is just an example that I wanted to point at, which is a little bit different from what we usually hear, but very important for us. So I am the head of unit of, very lucky to be the head of unit of a unit dealing with health innovation from the research and innovation perspective. Obviously, we are responsible for preparing work programs to fund research in different fields like personalized medicine, rare diseases, advanced therapies, the transformation of healthcare systems, and we also take care of the research concerning the impact of the environment in our health. So obviously health data, it's very important in the context of our activities that are obviously focused in contributing to the health policies, health initiatives, health priorities defined by the European Commission. In this slide, you can see several of them. It is not exhaustive, and I will not go through all of them, but maybe I would just point to the digital transformation of health and care, a communication that was adopted already long ago, 2018, 5 years ago, and which has been at the source of many different actions that are very popular nowadays, like, for example, the development of the European health data space. So in the context of this digital transformation of health and care priority, our DG Research and Innovation has been working very closely with DG Sante and with DG Connect. So this is very important for you to know that we are really acting in co-creation with a lot of synergies in order to maximize the impact that we can achieve. Maybe we can move to the next slide. Of course, Horizon Europe is our main instrument. New framework program of the research and of the European Commission for Research and Innovation. As you can see in the slide, green and digital transitions are one of the main objectives, main aims that we are looking for. So the subject of today is fully enshrined in the priorities of Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is a program that has been obviously quite inspired by its predecessors, looking for excellence in research. But there is a novelty, if I can point, is the search for impact. This is something that has become critical. We cannot afford to fund the research that has not the aiming of achieve as fast as possible impact for our society, impact for our citizens. And that translates into many different things. For example, the creation of missions. I'm sure you have heard about the cancer mission, but also the creation of the European Innovation Council that is trying to help us getting all these research results into quicker to the market. Maybe we can move to the next slide. Yeah, impact-driven program. So health is obviously the core of Cluster 1, 8 billion euros that are allocated for research and innovation in health. But you should know that health is a very popular subject for research and innovation, and further than Cluster 1, many projects on health are funded through the European Research Council, more for maybe basic research, non-collaborative, and then in the European Innovation Council that I was mentioning before. So we and you are looking for funding opportunities. I would advise you to, I know it has become a quite complex scenario because there are so many programs and so many pillars and so many, but I think once you get used to navigating in this environment, you will see that there are many, many opportunities. So in the context of the Cluster 1 health, our main instruments are collaborative topics. I will show you after some examples of topics where obviously digital technologies are essential. But we also fund through collaboration, very close collaboration with member states through co-fund partnerships. And we have several in the making or just starting. I would invite you to look at the Transformation Healthcare Systems Co-Fund that was kicked off last month. And the first call that is looking to the hospitals and the healthcare of the future, and where there will be many opportunities for digital tools, was pre-announced last week, and it will be launched shortly. So a lot of opportunities will be through that co-fund, but also co-funds like the one on rare diseases or the one on personalized medicine will obviously have digital completely entering in their activities. In the field of rare diseases, for example, digital technologies have been essential to support the diagnosis of undiagnosed patients. Many progress has been done through the use of verified data and the sharing of data between different countries. And also another important instruments that we have is the joint undertakings. On the field of health, I would point at the Innovative Health Initiative, which is fully cross-sectorial. It's a partnership between the European Commission and the different sectors of the health industry, medtech sector, pharma sector. Also different calls have been published. Now nothing is open because the last call deadline was last week. And of course, the Digital Euro program, with whom we are really collaborating strongly, with no doubt, capacity building is super important. And in the context of this program, many capacity building is supported, both in the field of data and data analytics. I'm taking...
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. No,
yes.
You're absolutely not taking
okay.
too long. It's just that we know that indeed we have another MEP joining us today.
Okay, no problem.
So I just learned that MEP Azimakopoulou, the vice chair of the INTA committee, joined us. So we're delighted to have a third MEP joining us this morning for the event. So Garma, just indeed perhaps hold your thought and we continue with your presentation afterwards. But we're delighted to have you. And do you want to say a few words, MEP Azimakopoulou?
I think the only words are congratulations and good luck with your work. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for being here this morning in your busy schedule.
No problem. Welcome. A pleasure. So Digital Euro program, many opportunities. I guess you have heard about the importance that we give to the data sharing. There is the building of the European health data space, but there is also the building of the sharing of genomic data between different member states. And then there is the 1 million genome initiative that is also supported in particular through the Digital Euro program, such as the cancer imaging initiative, the building also of the digital twins, many interesting initiatives. Maybe we can move to the next slide. As I was mentioning, cluster 1, main focus on health. And you see the 6 destinations, as we call it, are the expected outcomes that we are looking forward. As I mentioned, Horizon Europe is an impact-driven. So what we are looking is to expected outcomes, and the way the different proposers, so all of you would decide how to tackle them, is free. That's why we don't particularly have a specific space for digital technologies, even if they are mentioned in Destination 5, but we consider them as a cross-cutting priority. It's a horizontal priority. Digital is to be tackled through all the destinations because it's essential to achieve all those expected outcomes. Maybe we can move to the next one, where I just wanted to show you some of the examples of topics that are part of the work program 21, 22, 23, 24, where digital is the core, the development of artificial intelligence technologies, for example. But I would invite to look at all the topics, because in all of them there is a component certainly for digital. Next slide. One very important thing that you should be aware is that, as Ms. Carvalho was saying, there is an issue in the adoption of innovation in the healthcare sector. It is quite slow. And because of the importance in Europe of the public funding, spending in healthcare in Europe is over 70% in average, it's very important to push healthcare authorities, procurers of healthcare services, to embed innovation into the healthcare provision. And for that, we are supporting pool policies through the use of innovation procurement instruments. How they work, you have several procurers that come together and decided that there is an unmet need for which a product is not yet in the market. And then what we do is to fund the research and developments that would be associated to that. And for that, obviously, there are different, we can move to the next slide, there are different phases. The procurers come up with requests for a concrete need, most of them in the digital field, by the way, and then through different phases at the end, several suppliers are selected and are going to develop a product that we hope fits the initial needs of the procurers. Just in the bottom of this slide, you see the main pages where we advertise all this information. I could invite to subscribe, because there you will see all the opportunities where through our help, through our instruments, procurers are calling for development of certain products and services. And in the next slide, that will be my last slide, you can see examples of the different pre-commercial procurements that we have funded in the field of healthcare. This is European innovation procurement, so funded by us and involving different procurers, but this instrument is widening its use and is also used at local and regional level. And there are very successful examples that were used, for example, at the time of the pandemics. So I just wanted to say that so that you open your eyes and you look also at the funding opportunities directly opened by healthcare authorities and healthcare services. And that's all from my side. As I was saying, I am looking forward to know more about you, about all the exciting projects you are developing. We are there for you in case you have any questions. We can always be contacted afterwards, me of my unit. I'm always very happy to be in contact with what is so exciting happening outside of our institutions. Thank you.
Well, many thanks to you, Carmen, for this presentation and for highlighting all the initiatives going on in the area of health and research. I think what was very essential, what you said, that health is really being seen as a horizontal priority. And I think that is essential for our meeting today. And I'm sure that we're going to discuss that also later today. So I'm very happy indeed that we go into the panels now with indeed the first panel focusing on assistive technologies and vision. But not before I also have welcomed MEP Lucas Furlas from the EPP, because I saw that you joined in the meantime. So again, very happy to have the support. And I think MEP Kimpouropoulos, it shows how important the topic is, that also from the EPP group, you have a lot of support from your peers. So with that, indeed, I would like to go into the topic of assistive technologies and vision. And we start with a presentation that will focus on the use of artificial intelligence to detect blindness in children. And we will have a few words in terms of, I think, highlighting why this is so important, and also, I think, bridging then to the next presentation of the DIVE medical team. Good. I also hear that MEP Antonia Lopez is joining us. So again, also very happy to have you on board. And I'm sure that you also are going to listen with a lot of interest to indeed this panel, which will focus on the use of artificial intelligence to help detect blindness in children. So we have with us first Dr. Chao Gui from Huawei. I hope I pronounced it correctly, because we had a small conversation prior to this panel that actually there's a lot of pronunciations going on in Brussels. But you are the head of strategy, public affairs and communications, and you will introduce the topic before we go into the DIVE medical team. So the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Good morning, esteemed members of the European Parliament, and also distinguished guests and the fellow panelists. I'm honored to be here today to the Health Tech Summit in the European Parliament, and also present Tracker AI, a groundbreaking collaboration between Huawei and DIVE Medical from Spain to detect the diagnose early signs of visual impairment in children. So I'd like to congratulate MEP Kimpouropoulos and also MEP Carvalho for this excellent initiative, and thank you for the kind invitation and to participate in this panel. So Huawei believes that technology is a force for good. So we are committed to using innovative technology to drive sustainable social development and to support the European leadership in innovation. So Huawei has been in Europe for more than 2 decades and is integral part of the European innovation ecosystem, and also a reliable partner in the green and digital transitions. So in year 2022, we were ranked the 4th largest company in the EU Industrial R&D Investment Scoreboard. So this proves that innovation is our DNA. So when we look at the healthcare sector, the digital technologies, and also emphasized by MEP Carvalho, the research and the innovation are key in addressing some of the most pressing challenges. So ensuring health and also promoting well-being at all ages is essential for sustainable development. So we hope to drive inclusion and also accessibility in healthcare and also well-being for everyone. We hope to help empower those in the healthcare profession to provide inclusive healthcare and also provide coverage for vulnerable groups. Globally, there are 810 million children have visual problems, of which 90% can be cured or prevented if caught early enough. So, however, congenital or progressive low vision can go unnoticed in very young children, so babies get used to it and also able to adapt. But unfortunately, many of those children remain undiagnosed for years, which can lead to more severe issues. So this is why we are partnering up with Dive Medical from Spain to work on the Track AI project, which aims to develop a portable and also affordable device that can identify visual impairments in babies and also toddlers. So the Dive device captures the gaze of the patient using AI tracking technologies. AI-assisted solution is able to analyze the gaze data on the Dive platform to transform the way we detect, diagnose, and also treat disease, enabling us to provide more personalized, precise, and also effective care. So this collaboration with Dive Medical showcases the potential of technology to serve the common good and also improve the lives of millions of children around the world. So Huawei acts as an enabler of the ICT solutions. So because we understand the value of cooperation. So by involving diverse stakeholders, we can bring together the expertise and also resources needed to develop technology that truly make a difference in people's life. As the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So moving forward, we'll keep innovating and working with our partners to make digital technology more accessible for everyone and also create greater social value. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Quay, for introducing this panel to us and also making the link with the Dive Medical team that's going to tell us a bit more about indeed how the device works in detecting blindness in children. So I'm very happy indeed to have both Victoria and Marta from Dive with us. We're going to start with a presentation by Victoria Puello, the chief scientist and the co-founder of Dive. And I know that we've promised you an interactive event where we're going to have question and answers. But in light of time, what I propose is that we first have the presentations of this panel and that we then will have questions and answers. So I would say keep your questions because we will have time to deal with them later on. So with that, Victoria, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us to this amazing event. To present our wonderful collaboration about Track AI project, which is focused on the use of artificial intelligence to prevent avoidable blindness by means of an early detection of any visual disorder in children. It's our pleasure to have the opportunity of sharing with you our thoughts about how technology can not only improve the lives of many individuals, but also enhance the sustainability and efficiency of our health systems. Next slide, please. We all think that we see with our eyes. It is, however, our brain that learns to see when it receives the proper inputs. And that's why early eye care is so important. Next. If we are able to detect any erroneous input at an earlier stage, there is a window for full recovery. But if detection, next, please. If detection is delayed, vision will be impaired, not only in the short, but in the long term. And it has consequences in individuals, families, and societies. A child with visual problems will be at high risk of suffering low self-esteem, social isolation, and educational constraints. As adults, this situation is not going to be easier to cope with. Adults with visual problems have lower employment opportunities and worse quality of life. So that's why it's so important, early detection of any visual problem. Can you move forward? But how big is this problem? Because in my experience, we usually underestimate its importance in society. But we know that more than 800 million children are living in our sight-centered world with visual problems. And near future estimations say that it's not going to be better, but these figures are going to increase in the last decade. The main limitation is that 1 in 3 cases remains undetected, and it is even around 15% in Europe. And we know that 25% of our children are suffering from learning difficulties due to visual problems. But there is also good news, and it is that 90% of these problems could be prevented or treated if detected in time. So let's move forward and early detection of any visual problem. Next, please. Next. Blindness and visual impairment is an economic burden for societies. We know that only in Europe, every year, visual impairment costs around 30 billion euros. And when we talk about global figures, it reaches 3 trillion. So we must defend that it's worth investing in healthcare. We know that every dollar invested in the prevention and treatment of blindness returns an economic return of around $4. Next. The International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness launched the 2030 Insight Program with the goal of ending avoidable sight loss. Due to their previous program, the 2020 Right for Sight, the improvements made during the last decade has been huge. And the 2030 Insight Program wants to continue with this momentum through 3 strategic lines to embed vision as a fundamental economic issue, to incorporate eye health into health systems, and to drive consumer and market changes through private-public partnerships like the one we are presenting today. Next, please. We know that visual screening is the best tool to fight against, to decrease the rate of undetected visual problems in childhood, and therefore to fight against preventable visual impairment. And all the scientific societies, ophthalmologists, eye professionals agree with this idea and are committed with it. But when we talk about how to make it real and how to implement vision screening programs, there is no consensus. Next, please. Next, yeah. The EU Screen study was a program funded by the European Union with the goal of evaluating all the visual and hearing screening programs in Europe and to find their shortcomings and to build cost efficiency models. And what they found was the coverage and the quality of vision screening programs differ hugely across countries. Just as an example, vision screening programs are run by 13 different types of professionals depending on the country, with completely different clinical protocols, from a very simple visual acuity test to a really complex exam and really time-demanding. And they also differ in terms of the age of the screened children and the periodicity of the same. So it makes no sense to have such differences among countries just in Europe. Yeah, next, please. And what is most is that current standard of care related to visual exams cannot cope with these situations. As reported by professionals, there are many constraints. They require highly trained professionals. They are extremely time-consuming, really subjective. And as you can see here, when it comes to very young children and poor cooperation, it can be a real challenge. So when we think about actions to be taken in this sense, we find that there is an imbalance between the needs of care and the number of pediatric ophthalmologists. So ophthalmologists are not going to be able to solve this problem. That's why the best solution would be to empower people from the community, non-professionals, to find these people, to identify children at high risk of suffering problems and to refer them to a specialized ophthalmologist able to diagnose them and treat them, and to give the best treatment and the best monitoring for these children. But as a first step, we need an easy-to-use and affordable tool able to be run by non-professionals and able to identify children with visual problems from our community. And next, please. And that was the main goal of our Track AI project.
So I will pick up the presentation here. I'm Marta Ortin. I have a PhD in computer engineering, and I'm a CTO and co-founder of Dive Medical. So as we mentioned before, Track AI is a collaboration between Huawei and our medtech startup. And in the next slide, we can see this is our device here. The video is not moving. Maybe if you click again, we can see, or maybe not, so we'll try. We can see our device here. This is called Dive, and it allows for a fast and accurate vision exploration in any type of patient, even non-collaborative patients such as babies or very young children. And so the patient just needs to, thank you very much. The patient just needs to sit in front of the device and look at the screen as if they were watching TV. Meanwhile, in the screen, we display different stimuli that we have carefully designed to evaluate different aspects of the visual function. And the key is that we have eye tracking to collect very accurately the gaze of the child or any patient while they were looking at the stimuli. So, so that you get a better intuition of why this works, let's see on the next slide. We have an example of one of our tests that you are going to see in a second. Okay, thank you, perfect. So this looks like a very innocent bee appearing and disappearing on the screen. It's just a cartoon. Now we leverage on preferential looking, which is something, which is how all humans work, even babies. That means that if there is something different, something that moves or something that stands out, we are all going to look at it. So babies work like this. So in the next slide, we can see these red dots that have appeared now correspond to the gaze of the child that we collect during this test. In this case, these red dots correspond to the gaze of the child with normal visual development. So we can see how their gaze, or we saw how their gaze focused on a very small area on top of each stimuli, and it moved very quickly and very accurately from one stimulus to the next. But now on the next example, on the next slide, we are going to see the gaze of a child with abnormal visual development. And we can see that it is very different, much more erratic. The child is not able to go quickly and accurately to the next bee. They are not able to focus on a small area on top of the bee. So from this is from where we can extract a lot of information. And on the next slide, we can see how this materializes on our medical device. So we are a Class 2A medical device. We have recently received the CE marking according to the new medical device regulation. And we incorporate, based on this same principle, many different visual tests to explore different aspects of vision. And we have, most of our tests are usable by anybody, even non-collaborative people. And so this was the start of the Track AI project. Because with all these tests and all this information, we give a huge set of very accurate metrics that the ophthalmologists and the eye care professionals can use to diagnose and follow up on the evolution of their patients. But as Victoria said, not all children get to go to the ophthalmologist, and there are not enough ophthalmologists to analyze the data for all the children. So in the next slide, we can see, as I said, this is the starting point of the Track AI project. And what we did during the project was incorporate artificial intelligence into our device. So an automatic way of analyzing all this big amount of data that we are producing from each patient and reporting the results automatically without the need for a specialist. So in the next slide, we can see we combined this, our DIVE device, with a P50 smartphone, which is used by the technician that is running the test to control how the visual exploration is going without interfering between the patient and the device, which is very relevant to avoid any distractions by these patients who are particularly challenging. And then the results are received directly in real time on the smartphone. So on the next slide, we can see so this is the system together, and on the next slide, we can see an example of how it would be working. We see the stimuli on the screen, the smartphone showing the progress of how it is going. It allows the technician to keep track of the quality of the data that is being captured so that they can interfere if they need to repeat or pause anything. And on the next slide, we see how at the end of all the tests, we could get automatically a report like this. So this means that anybody from the community, as Victoria was saying, could use this system to identify which children may have a visual problem and should be referred to the specialist. And on the next slide, we can see how our collaboration on the Track AI project has developed. So it has been a long journey. We started the first phase of our Track AI project back in 2019. This first phase was based on collecting data from many children in order to build our artificial intelligence model. So we had ophthalmologists across 3 continents. We were at Mexico, Spain, China, Vietnam, examining vision for more than 2,000 patients. We gathered a large database with a wide variety of visual pathologies and a lot of children with normal visual development as well. Also a wide variety in terms of ages, in terms of ethnicity. And with all the data, we developed the first version of our DIVE AI vision screening. And on the next slide, we can see the second phase of the project, which ran through 2020 and 2021. We again ran visual screenings at 5 centers in 3 different continents. And we again performed screenings for more than 2,000 children. And in this case, we used all this data for validation of what we had already developed before. And also, the more data you have, the more accurate your artificial intelligence can become. So we keep improving it constantly. And on the next slide, we can see the third phase, which is the one we are running right now through 2022 and 2023. We have already run screenings in Mexico and Spain, and in 1 or 2 months, we will be going to Namibia. So we are going to Africa for the first time. And again, our goal is to reach almost 2,000 screenings again. And so in the next slide, we can see that well, we have a lot of technology already developed. On the last phase of the project, we even reached schools and performed screenings at schools. So now that we have this, what do we need to bring the benefits of this technology to society? So the needs that we have identified are very much aligned to the objectives that have been outlined by the International Association for the Prevention of Blindness. First of all, one very relevant thing we have identified is that we need to build public-private partnerships. So similar to, we have collaborated not only with Huawei, we have also collaborated with all the hospitals and medical centers in all the different countries that you have seen in the previous slides. And the second thing is that we have to create the right regulatory environment. So we are absolutely aligned with the idea that technology has to be properly validated, properly accepted, and the safety has to be proven and the efficacy has to be demonstrated. But the current regulatory process is a huge burden, and it is a big, big barrier in terms of time and in terms of money. So there needs to be a way of making this process more agile and easier for small startups that do not have that many resources. And I will give the floor to Victoria to finish our presentation.
Yeah, next, please. So let's see a real case of the implementation of this technology and the impact it can have. This is Julieta. She's a 4-year-old girl. When she was 3, she was run a vision screening with DIVE, which revealed that she was suffering some kind of problem in her left eye. I performed a complete visual exam, which confirmed the problem in her left eye and her poor visual acuity due to a cataract. So we ran the surgery weeks after the diagnosis, and soon after the surgery, she started with glasses and patches. And thanks to this early detection of her visual problem, now her vision is progressively increasing and getting better. And now it has even reached the visual acuity of her right eye. Next, please. So this is how the cycle of eye care could be integrated in health systems, which is crucial to have a real and universal eye care. Technicians with non-professional technicians could run the screening, the vision screening. They could take place in primary care centers or schools or kindergartens, depending on the health system structures. And ideally, they would examine all the children, and just a small amount of them would be referred to a specialist, to a pediatric ophthalmologist, probably based in hospitals, who could diagnose them and invest their time and their efforts in doing this diagnosis just from high-risk children. And they could also benefit from the data provided by DIVE devices, not only for the diagnosis, but also for the monitoring of the progression of the disease and the response to their treatments. Next, please. So we consider that the benefits from an artificial intelligence-based vision screening, as the one we are presenting, are important for all the steps of the health system. For health systems in general, it means savings of professional times and professional efforts in vision screening, since they could be run by non-professionals, but also for patients who may benefit from an early detection of any visual problem and for a better experience. And it means lower consequences of the visual problems and better prognosis, but also for the pediatricians and nurses who are currently doing these exams, who are not feeling they feel uncertainty because they are not used to do these exams, and they could avoid these time-consuming screenings. And of course, also for ophthalmologists who could focus on high-risk children, and they could benefit from all the objective data from these kind of systems. Next, please. We are on a journey that has just started, and health caregivers, governments, technological companies, and policymakers, we are urged to work hand in hand towards universal health care. Portable and affordable solutions run by non-trained people are maybe the perfect solution for allowing this universal and cost-efficient eye care. We are immersed in an era of rapid technological development, but we are also responsible to choose what to do with it. So we should accept the challenge and force technology to fight against disparities among healthcare. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well, many thanks to you both, Marta and Victoria, for your very powerful presentation, because MEP Carvalho in her introduction spoke about the empowerment also for young girls and children. And I think you showed exactly that. And I think you also, in terms of, let's say, the policy consequences, also for the sake of discussion, you highlighted the need for consensus around screening programs. And I think that's also something that we may want to come back to later on. The last part of this presentation is another tool which I saw in advance and which I was quite impressed by as well, which will be presented by Maël Fabien from BPET. And he will tell us more about another tool to guide blind and visually impaired people. So Maël, good to have you with us as well this morning, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Maël. I'm the co-founder of a startup named Biped. I do see that there is a problem with the slides, so you'll have to bear with me explaining. There's not too much text, hopefully, on this. As a word of introduction, I'm probably one of the numerous examples of what European policy in terms of focus on research and the use of AI in health tech is doing. I was doing a PhD in artificial intelligence on the Horizon project. We just applied with our company for EIT funding. And I just wanted to tell you a bit about our journey, how it started. We are building a navigation device for blind and vision impaired people. And on the next slide, you'll see an example of the still the next one. Really no text on this one, so. So Biped started about 2 years ago. At the time, I met a blind person who was crossing the street. I was doing my PhD in artificial intelligence, and this person was actually doing a video call to a friend, having this kind of waving pattern where he could film things on the left or on the right. And on FaceTime, someone was actually helping him avoid obstacles, traffic signs, low-hanging branches, or electric scooters that had been newly deployed in the city. That was very challenging for him to avoid. And I just realized at this time that there might be use cases for AI that could help this person gain independence and not have to rely on a friend while walking around. And I just thought it would be a nice weekend project. And long story short, it took about 2.5 years before getting this, and not a small weekend. On the next slide, you'll see some of the considerations. There is around 3 million blind people in Europe, about 2 million in the US. I won't repeat the global numbers, but for basically millions of blind and vision impaired people, daily mobility remains a challenge. So on the next slide, we've summarized some of the frequent issues that have been highlighted by beta testers and blind and vision impaired community, and basically avoiding obstacles that the white cane cannot detect is very often cited as something that comes as a very big pain. So because the white cane is only going to scan floor level elements, there are extremely long wait times if you want to get a guide dog. For example, in Switzerland, where we're based, there is about 15 new guide dogs trained every year to serve a population of over 40,000 blind people in the country. Avoiding moving objects, that's something that is kind of developing more and more because fast-moving objects that don't produce any sounds. I'm thinking about electric scooters, bicycles, in the soft mobility aspect, and electric mobility, even electric cars. We've met a couple of people who had very bad encounters with electric vehicles in general because they cannot hear those obstacles coming. And finally, navigating alone just with a GPS is something that comes as a challenge because most of them would rely either on specialized application or on Google Maps to do the navigation from A to B. And very often they cannot do this discovery and go this path alone. They need to do a mapping initially. And so daily mobility from anywhere very close to very far remains a challenge. And that's basically the moment we realized that this is exactly what self-driving cars are solving to many extent. So on the next slide, you'll see an illustration of basically the software that runs inside of modern self-driving car technologies. We judge the ability of a car to navigate autonomously by its ability to avoid collisions, so be safe, also predict the potential risks a couple of seconds ahead. It's not only just a distance sensor, it can also track other vehicles and predict the best decision to make, and finally drive the user independently from point A to point B. And so that was really the moment we realized this was being solved on one end, but it was never being brought to the pedestrian level for people who need it the most. And so next slide, please. I just want to introduce now what's Biped and how we bring this to the pedestrian level. So Biped is a small harness that is worn on the shoulders, equipped with a set of cameras. It's super wide angle cameras that work day and night and can capture distance information up to 12 meters. There's a small computer inside. And basically we built an AI system that is capable of detecting all surrounding obstacles, predicting all the trajectories a couple of seconds ahead with potential vehicles, with pedestrians, with static obstacles, holes or staircases, and finally giving GPS instructions. The way the person is going to hear the feedback, and you'll see that on the, there are like just two small animations on the slide. Yeah, just like this, and then perfect. And so the person wears Bluetooth headphones. So typically we work with open ear headphones so that we don't block any surrounding sound. And we use something we all know to provide the feedback. which is a sequence of beep, just like the parking assist of a car. So if there is an obstacle coming on the right, the person will hear beep, 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 beep as the obstacle is coming closer. We can play with type of sound to reflect the danger of the obstacle that is incoming. You won't play the same sound for a car versus an electric scooter. And we can play on the frequency at which we play the sound to reflect how fast the object is coming. So it's something that requires few training to this extent, because we do use the common concepts of when you back up with a car and you have this sound being played more and more frequently, and the training remains fairly simple. So there is on the next slide a illustration video. So this is Ali, one of our frequent beta testers, who was testing the previous version of Biped. He just heard a small sound on the left and avoided a couple of elements, or Saliu, who just avoided street marketing elements in front of him before the white cane even hits it. Pierre, who just turned 80 years old and avoided low-hanging branches that were coming at his head level. For example, having here Ali just did a shoulder movement because he detected that two pedestrians were coming his way. And here, that's another example of how you can actually avoid collisions before potentially bumping into it. And of course, you don't want to overload people too much. So the idea is that as you walk in a park and there is no direct risk of collision, the novelty of the solution is really to bring down the level of information and only play sounds when there is a very big risk of collision. And so people really highlight that it's something that leaves the mind quite free, because in that sense, when you walk with a white cane, you always have the risk of potentially hitting something right after. What we do is we work in complement with white cane or in complement with guide dogs, not with the aim of replacing anything. The technology is just an add-on to bring the additional layer of information that's needed. And we've worked together with over 250 beta testers. I think this was highlighted in the previous presentation. We're a class 1 medical device, so there is no clinical trial, but mostly usability tests to run with end users. That's something we've done with an ophthalmic hospital since the start and involved over 10 associations a bit all over Europe. Some of the tests that we're also running in the US, because there is a local factor. Also, the streets in New York are not going to be the same as the street in Paris or in Brussels. And we want to learn from this and train our systems to get better over time. So on the next slide. So we are currently a small team of 4. I've been working on this for about 2 years. I think as many Swiss companies, but that's just the local specificity. We come from all over Europe except Switzerland, but that's the common thing. Our team specialized on robotics. Paul, one of our research engineers, was working on an autonomous wheelchair before that also. So that's the kind of skills that we have access to, which is very interesting. And on the next slide, I'll dive a bit into the technology. So that's an example of what's running inside of the device in real time. So you can see the detection of all the obstacles, of the pedestrians, of the bus. That's the environment understanding software we are building. And basically, it's going to detect all the obstacles. So there are a couple of animations on the slide, if you can pass them. Yeah. So we can capture basically the 3D data. Then we can detect all the obstacles. We can track and predict all the trajectories in real time, so that we don't only react to something if it has if it's just 2 meters in front of the person, but we can track it from 10 meters away, predict its trajectory, and know that it will enter as a potential risk of collision at some point, and then play the sound. So the person always has time to react. Talking about collaborations, we also launched a collaboration with a research institute from Honda based in Frankfurt. And this is one of the very first times that we took technology from self-driving car that they developed for road level, and we just adapted it to work on the sidewalk level. So that's some of the fast tracks that we found to making this technology impactful and repurpose the technology. So now, same as with self-driving cars, how do you reach this level 5 kind of autonomy? How do you test for edge cases? So that's something where we, on the next slide, developed a small simulation engine where we can basically replicate kind of hard scenarios. And the idea is that we can test the ability of our software to work in those scenarios. That's really something where we need to guarantee that the solution will work well and will detect all sorts of obstacles in various environments. So yeah, you can move to the next slide, please. What has been so far on the market basically was electronic white canes. They have a small sensor, ultrasound or laser. You attach it to the cane and it vibrates if there is something less than 2 meters away. One of the key limitations to this, and this is still why white canes and guide dogs remain the go-to solution to date for blind and vision impaired people, is that it's going to provide an information overload, because there's always something less than 2, 3, or 4 meters away. You're just on a sidewalk, there's a building on the left, there are people in front of you, and there are cars parked on the right. It just vibrates everywhere. What we're trying to do is, by analyzing things based on movement and not on distance only, the movement gives us the key information that as long as you don't run into the wall or into the cars or into the pedestrians in front of you, there is the ability to filter the relevant information. And that's something that has only been possible since the use of artificial intelligence system, and yeah, only quite recently. A couple of other systems such as smart glasses to read text or recognize objects, but they can only do it because it's very light hardware, so we are not at a level where you can use that outdoor to detect scenes. And finally, a couple of GPS systems. What we're trying to do is bring everything into one, because of course all of these technologies require training. They're not the most affordable, and it's very often private paying end users until the solution gets reimbursed. So what we're trying to do is to centralize everything into a single solution. On the next slide. Yeah, so right now what we're trying to do is to have biped be used by private paying end users. So at the level where they would use it to avoid obstacle and to get GPS navigation, target the reimbursement of the solution. But we also want to bring biped as a mean of work inclusion. So sell this as an employee benefit also for companies who hire blind and visually impaired coworkers, map the campus on which people work, and offer indoor navigation also inside of these premises, because we do believe that there is a big work to do on work inclusion for blind communities. And finally, we have data that we can capture from the street. The idea would be repurpose this data for better policy governance and good accessibility audits that can be done, because we can see if there is if a place is accessible just by looking at the data that we recorded. On the next slide, right now we are. I'll jump quickly on this, but what we're trying to do is work together with end user, with associations, with foundations, low vision experts and hospitals who can still bring the input and be the man in the middle who can help spread the word, and a couple of distributors in a couple of countries, because of course just for the spreading the awareness now that the product is available on the market, as a team of 4, there is only as much as we can do without key partners. On the next slide, we are currently deployed in 7 countries. We just cleared medical device regulation for class 1 medical device, and we have a couple of units that we deployed. The idea is that in 2023 we'll try to reach about 500 units deployed in Europe, target FDA, and then be at scale in Europe and in the US within the next 2 years. On the next slide, that's just some thoughts on the journey to building biped. We're based in Switzerland, so very specific use case. So I won't take this as generalities, but FDA is not being similar to medical device regulation, even though it tends to be aligned, is kind of a pain in the sense that once we reach the class 1 medical device regulation, there is still a whole work to redo, which as a team of 4 still relies on getting external consultants paid a couple of $100 an hour to help us implement a couple of things. So that's still a very big cost. But of course, I won't complain too much. We're a class 1 medical device, so it stands on the easy side, and I can only imagine what getting class 2 devices and up can be. In terms of funding, disability, because we're really on the disability, how to live with a condition rather than how to treat it. Disability tech is still not a huge topic, so that's why I'm also very excited that we're giving the word here. Public fundings do take quite a bit of time and luck, because I think it's been highlighted, but there are also very various programs that exist. We just applied for EIT fundings, but we mostly relied on something that is so far quite straightforward, which is business angel networks. So we found a good resonance with private investors helping us raise pre-seed and seed rounds until now to get funded. And finally, on the technology level, hardware, of course, remains very challenging to do in Europe. So most of the companies we work with would directly source most of the prototyping and production in China. This is still something we want to, of course, bring back to Europe as much as possible. And in the suppliers we work with, we try to favor that. But very often the cost pressure and the timings for rapid prototyping is not met. Software engineering, I think, has, at least at our very small scale, we've had fantastic coverage for software engineering skills, and I think there is a pool of talents that is just insane in terms of the technology that we can build. And I really do see maybe a generational shift, but when we open positions, we have above 100 applicants, and I think many people are driven just by the impact they want to have with their work. So that plays in our favor, and hopefully will help us have a massive impact on the market and bring a solution that people really like. I brought one device to also try it afterwards or answer some of your questions if you have any. So thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thanks to you, Maël, for yet another compelling example of what can be done to indeed improve the condition that people live with. And I think also this panel with Dive and BPET shows how artificial intelligence can indeed play a role in the health sector and improve the quality of patients' lives. And I think has a very important impact also to play when we think about the consequences for policy making. So we have a few minutes for questions. And again, given everything that's going on and also given everything that the European Parliament has been working on these past years in terms of legislative initiatives, I'm sure that there will be many questions. So I hope I can manage it. I see the first participant. If you can perhaps briefly state your name and affiliation, then we all know a bit how to place you. There you
go. Yes, my name, thank you very much. It's very interesting seminars. I was yesterday morning and then in the afternoon, and it was very, very interesting. My name is Stella Velighi. I have studied physics and informatics, and I'm a member of the European Physical Society, and I have two questions. Firstly, the Strack AI tools is very interesting, but you didn't show the efficiency of your tool, and to show the efficiency of your tool, you must have some statistical data. What I mean with efficiency, from 10 sick people, you detect with your tool 9 or 1 or nothing. I didn't see this. Another question is, can I use another mobile phone than Huawei to install this application? And the last question is data protect. We have a lot of medical applications that we can install on the mobile phone now. The problem is that the communist dictator China has the right to ask all the data for all the private people to all the Chinese private company and institution. And my question is, how do you protect the data of European people in this case? Because they are medical data, they are private data, and we don't know where they are going.
Let me perhaps first see if there's other questions as well, so that we collect a few before we let our panel answer to them. So are there any...
I have
Yeah, MEP Kimpouropoulos, you have a question as well.
Yes, both showcases are extremely important for people, so I welcome. But I have a question from both sides for both of my sides. Yes, from one side, on one hand, we have TrackEye and this important new product that is going to help many people to diagnose very early the eye impairment issues. On the other side, we have BIBED, which is going to support blind people. So, and we are here as legislative house, and also we have the Commission statement. So my question is, what are you need from both sides in order to support your efforts to develop more tools and to have more initiatives towards the idea of supporting people, not only from healthcare aspect, but also for the daily support. So what is missing from the map of innovation? Thank you.
I'm looking around to see if there's more questions. Otherwise, yeah, I think I see a last question there.
Yes, I want to ask Mr. Fabian about you just mentioned that there is some problem you face that the hardware part. Then it's very difficult for you to source it from. Yeah, first I introduce myself. I'm from Huawei, and Dr. Hui is my colleague. Because Mr. Fabian just mentioned that yes, that one of the problem is that it's from your hardware. It's from China, right? Yeah, and yeah, it's difficult from getting it from Europe, right? So I just want to ask more, because you know that from China and Europe, this kind of technology collaboration between because China has its advantage, for example, the hardware, and Europe has its advantage. So from your perspective, how China and Europe can work together? Yeah, because I'm from Huawei on this. For example, the technology side, for example, the hardware. Yeah.
Good. So I think, Maël, we have questions for you about efficiency, data protection, and indeed how China and Europe can work together. I think, MEP Kimpouropoulos, your question about indeed what do you need, I think especially in terms of policy making, and also perhaps how to ensure that these innovations find their entrance in healthcare systems. I think that's what I would like to hear from all of you. So perhaps again, I gave Maël the floor first, and then all of you, if you could briefly in with your ideas about how indeed we can make this happen.
I'm sure. I think the efficiency and data protection questions were probably focused on the diagnostic from track. But I can take on the question regarding the hardware aspect. What we've found so far is that the very early days of prototyping, to have sufficient supply, to have adaptations of, for example, some PCBs if we need to redo some design or whatever, is something that is done very efficiently and rather quickly in China. And then the scaling part of the production can happen mostly by then launching just a call for a couple of suppliers, or getting a couple of offers from a couple of suppliers in Europe, and then trying to source as many things as possible in Europe. So this is probably what we're going through, and I think by experience from the companies we work with, something that many startups are doing. So first bothering about getting the products out there, and then thinking about how can we produce it in Europe over time. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that it's done that way. I think indeed the quick prototyping is something that is also helping a lot the European startup founders in hardware. Maybe this is something that's missing in Europe also to some extent. That would be, I have limited experience with this, but from the 2 years of being in that sector, that's what I would say. And then as for the daily support, I think in terms of I mean, I won't talk about the Swiss case, but I think there is probably a unification of where startups can apply for programs or for funding, in the extent that we still run into new calls or new programs from time to time, and it's probably still after 2 years of being in this sector. So I think, or probably we're like not too aware of the full mapping, but it's probably on our side also to educate ourselves with this. And I think there is most of what we need is already in Europe. From the pool of talents to maybe just being able to also establish new entities in other countries to help with the scaling of companies. That's something we're currently going through. There are a couple of regulatory hurdles, but that's something that can, I think, be that we can overcome rather quickly. But yeah, I would say it's mostly for us a unification of how we can look for potential supports as a European startup, because we very often find that the program has already been developed, is already working, and we just bump into it like 2 years in the journey.
So perhaps, Carmen, and to you the question, what do you need from the side of the institutions, from the side of the European Commission? What would you need to enforce the agenda going forward, especially perhaps in light of the elections also next year and the fact that we will have a new European Parliament, the next European Commission? What is it that you need most?
Actually, I think that what we need is to support that all these beautiful innovations do get to those who need them. And I'm wondering what we should do or we could do in order to help them. We do put forward public-private partnerships, and we work closely with member states and healthcare authorities. But I take the point. One of the things that got my attention is the fact that disabilities is probably an area where there is not enough attention. For example, in the context of rare diseases, we really support a lot research around rare diseases since long, in a strong collaboration with other countries in Europe, but also around the world. But probably we do not enough in order to support the everyday living of people who have these conditions. So what means living with a rare disease every day? And the same applies to visual impairments and other things. And that's a lesson taken and well taken, because probably we could do more in the context of the different instruments that we have, as I was mentioning before, from the different funding programs, also to support more those areas. But then again, I think what is important is also to ensure that there is a demand for that. And that's something where obviously we can also help through fostering the dialogue between the demand and the supply. But I would say that would be the most important part, because I have many questions for you, and I hope we can discuss afterwards. But I would be very interested in knowing who were the first buyers of those products, how they, because there are so many questions as regulatory questions. We are also tackling that through our research program, putting more the focus on that, but many questions about reimbursement, about how, I mean, the efficiency. And we have realized in the context of, for example, our actions in personalized medicine, how much even when cost efficiency of an innovation is demonstrated, it's still not yet uptaken, or uptaken very unevenly, significantly in one country and not at all in another, and not always depending on the economic situation of the country. Sometimes it's just about, processes that are very difficult to change, simply not awareness. So we need to reflect together with you on these cases to see what we could do better, what we could do more in order to support that these things reach those who are in need, especially when they would be cost efficient for the society. That's what is more striking.
Thanks for that, Carmen. Then the DIVE medical team, what is it that you need going forward?
Okay, so we are I had taken note of the funding, so we are very well aligned with our fellow speaker. So I'm going to focus on the second thing that I had taken note of, which is the regulatory process that I already mentioned. So that you have an idea of what I mean by this is we have now just received the CE marking approval for our device for a version of the device that we presented 2 years ago. That means we have continued working. So that means that our technology is now 2 years ahead of what is approved and can be clinically used. So we have better accuracy, better usability, better attention to the patient, but we cannot apply it yet until it goes through another round of approvals. So that means that the regulatory process needs to be more agile and it needs to adapt to the high speed of technological development because we are moving much faster than we are being allowed to move. And yeah, maybe...
Is there anything you would like to add, Victoria?
No, not for this question.
Good. Well, I hope that also gave you some insight to your question about indeed what we need. And I think we have the second panel that probably also comes with their own dimension to it.
I think that the most important issue is what we raised, that we need to be more agile. So we need to find this kind of framework that leave the wide margins in order to be not behind the innovation, but in front of innovation. So this is what I take as a note in order to see how we can implement such provision. Thank you.
Well, thanks to you, and I think that brings us to the end of part one of the panels today. And I think, again, we couldn't have said it better than the way you did it just now. So with that, I would like to thank all speakers of this panel. I mean, we could have gone on, I think, more, and I'm sure that you would have had perhaps more questions for the panel, but I think they also would be very happy to answer to you bilaterally afterwards. So many, many thanks to all our speakers. It was really great to have you with us. Many thanks, and I would like now to ask you perhaps to change so that indeed the second panel can come up and we go indeed to part two of this event. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do we do?